Shri Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, affectionately known as Amma, dedicates literally every day of her life to consoling suffering people all over the world. Her message and the essence of her compassion is expressed in her darshan, the motherly embrace she has given to more than 33 million people throughout her life. She has been known to give darshan for more than 22 hours without interruption. When people pour out their hearts to Amma, she offers them emotional solace, spiritual guidance, and concrete solutions to their problems. Receiving Amma's embrace, many feel inspired to offer selfless service to those in need. In this way, this simple yet powerful act has become both catalyst and symbol for a growing international network of humanitarian initiatives known collectively as Embracing the World. Embracing the World was conceived by the Mata Amritanandamayi Mat, Amma's India-based humanitarian and spiritual organisation. Amma's organisation has been awarded special consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council for its efforts to serve the poor and suffering, regardless of their ethnicity, social status, or religion. Each of Embracing the World's projects has been initiated in response to the needs of the world's poor, who have come to unburden their hearts to Amma and cry on her shoulder.
More than 25 years ago, the administrators of a local orphanage confessed to Amma that they were out of funds. They told Amma that before long, they would have no choice but to turn the children out on the street. Amma diverted the money that had been saved to build her ashram's first prayer hall and used it to assume care of the orphans. With this, Embracing the World was born. At the time, the children's living conditions were deplorable. They lived in dirty, cramped quarters and barely had enough food to eat. They were neglected both physically and emotionally. Amma immediately began caring for the children, rebuilding the orphanage and re-establishing the school. Inspired by Amma's profound concern for the children's well-being, Embracing the World completely renovated the orphanage and transformed its atmosphere. Today, there are 500 children living at the orphanage. With the nourishing food and loving care and encouragement they receive from dedicated staff, the children gain the confidence and the strength to move forward in life. The children attend Amrita Sanskrit Higher Secondary School, run by Amma's ashram, where they consistently win state-level awards in Sanskrit, music, sports, and dance. More than 1 in 3 go on to earn college degrees. The Mata Amritanandamayi Mat has established 57 primary and secondary schools throughout India. The schools boast a 100% pass rate in board examinations. More than 100,000 students are currently being educated in Amma's institutions. Values play a central role. Children are encouraged to develop both intellectually and emotionally, learning to practice selflessness, compassion, and respect for others in all activities. They are given the foundation needed to be of real service to society as a whole.
Embracing the World's AIMS Hospital is dedicated to providing outstanding medical care, regardless of one's ability to pay. The hospital offers cutting-edge healthcare services for those who would otherwise have nowhere else to turn. Most people in India do not have any health coverage. Poor people suffering from cancer, heart disease, and other serious ailments told Amma they could not afford even a single painkiller, let alone the advanced medical treatment they needed to cure their disease. Amma responded to this urgent need. Since opening its doors in 1998, AIMS and its satellite hospitals and clinics have provided more than $70 million in charitable medical care. More than 2.6 million patients have been treated free of charge. The hospital authorities, doctors and the nurses helped us sincerely. The patient service staff helped in rescuing my daughter's life. Amma helped us in providing free operations, which would have otherwise cost around $20,000. After 9 years of operations, we got our daughter back. We are grateful to Amma, the hospital authorities, the patient service staff, doctors and nurses. We will always remember Amma with gratitude, as Amma saved our daughter. Every year, AIMS conducts more than 100 free health camps in remote, impoverished areas. Eye camps screen for cataract conditions. When necessary, patients are sent to AIMS for free eye operations. In 2010 alone, AIMS performed free cataract surgeries for 726 patients. All treatment and medicines are given free of charge. Patients are also screened for serious diseases and referred to AIMS for further treatment when necessary. Amrita Kripa Sagar is a community care centre dedicated to helping people living with HIV and AIDS. A nearby government clinic provides antiretroviral drugs, allowing our care centre to focus on providing material and psychological support for people living with HIV and AIDS, in a culture where the disease still carries a strong negative stigma. Apart from quality healthcare, services include psychological, social, and spiritual counselling, group therapy, home care, educational support for the children of people living with HIV and AIDS, and vocational training. An outpatient clinic, open daily, provides free medicines and medical treatment for the poor, and is particularly geared towards supporting patients with HIV and AIDS. AIMS runs 3 satellite charitable hospitals in Kerala, one in Mysore, Karnataka, and one in the Andaman Islands. Here in Kalpeta, most patients belong to the tribal community. As many as 200 people visit the outpatient clinic daily. Out of deep concern for the indigenous population, the doctors also make rounds to remote tribal hamlets.
There are an estimated 40 million widows living in India. For a woman in India, the death of her husband can consign her to a lifetime of hardship. Chances of remarrying are slim. Considered a financial burden, many widows are cast out of their homes and find themselves unable to provide for their children. Since 1998, Embracing the World has provided monthly pensions for widows, as well as for the differently abled and others living below the poverty line. Currently, we are providing 59,000 pensions. Our goal is to provide monthly pensions for 100,000 impoverished women and men who are struggling to make ends meet. Our pensions have no expiration date. They are given for life. Amma has always said that service to those in need is the real worship of God. Amma demonstrates this principle at each spiritual program that she conducts throughout India every year, taking the opportunity to expand the pension program and personally present the new recipients with their first pension checks. Often, sewing machines are also distributed to the pension recipients, giving them the means to begin earning an income as well.
Despite significant economic progress in the past decade, India is home to about 25% of the world's hungry poor. Through Amma's main ashram and its branch centres, Embracing the World feeds more than 10 million poor people every year throughout India. The centres welcome people as their guests and serve them hot meals. In this way, volunteers also get to know the people and their needs. At the Mumbai ashram, this service has been running for nearly 20 years. For people worrying about how to make ends meet, the knowledge that they can receive a regular meal from our volunteers also helps to ease the psychological burden imposed by poverty and gives a sense of security in their lives. We also regularly distribute rice, milk, and other uncooked staple foods to remote tribal communities who would otherwise be forced to live in extreme poverty. As a symbol of the recognition that she has received from the global community, Amma was invited to address the Millennium World Peace Conference of religious and spiritual leaders at the United Nations in 2000.
Although the numbers denoting the new millennium are different, essentially nothing else has changed. The real change must happen within ourselves. Love is the only medicine that can heal the wounds of the world. When we work together as a global family, peace and happiness will once again prevail on this earth.
Well, I feel that it's a great honor to share a platform with a woman who is so remarkable and who is the very embodiment of goodness. She believes that God does not discriminate between the sexes. And I believe that she stands here in front of us, God's love in a human body.
Dr. Goodall and the late UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Sergio Vieira de Mello, presented Amma with the Gandhi King Award for Non-Violence at the UN General Assembly in Geneva in 2002.
The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami was the most devastating tsunami in recorded history, claiming nearly 228,000 lives. In India, an estimated 18,000 people lost their lives, and nearly 650,000 people were displaced by the disaster. After the tsunami struck, Amma's ashram became the center of the relief operations, despite the fact that the ashram was badly damaged by the floodwaters. Hundreds of volunteers provided free, immediate and temporary relief.
It's very striking because I've been involved with the United Nations, with non-governmental organizations, and first it's very difficult to get good delivery. Quality delivery of services to those in need, to those in distress, to those who support, to whom we're giving support, and to do it in a timely way is exceedingly difficult, especially in the middle of a massive disaster, massive emergency like the tsunami.
Amma visited some of the worst-hit areas in Tamil Nadu, where more than 8,000 people were killed, and personally consoled each person who came to meet her. Amma's volunteers distributed more than 185 tons of rice and other provisions over the next several months, as well as 6 million meals to tsunami survivors.
With most of the labour and services provided free of charge by thousands of volunteers from all over the world, the actual value of relief provided was even greater than that reflected by the expenditure.
There were a couple of generous gifts made public today by famous people, and an Indian religious figure, the so-called Hugging Saint, has said she will give $22 million to rebuild homes in India which the tsunami has destroyed.
Embracing the World was the first non-governmental organisation to complete permanent housing for tsunami survivors in India. And by October 2008, had completed all 6,296 pledged homes. After 2 years of relief effort, the actual expenditure had doubled the original pledged amount, reaching $46 million. We also provided free vocational training for 2,500 young people from Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and provided them with jobs in Amma's institutions. They were educated to be teachers, nurses, paramedic assistants, security officers, drivers, masonry workers, carpenters, mechanics, and tailors. Hundreds of tailoring machines were also provided free of charge. Amma held educational camps in her Amritapuri ashram, where over 10,000 children participated. Amma's vision for rehabilitation is not simply limited to providing food, clothing, and shelter, but aims to provide for every aspect of well-being, material, emotional, and spiritual, giving the disaster survivors a strong foundation for the future. The President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, inaugurated the evacuation bridge built by Embracing the World. The bridge was constructed as an escape route capable of evacuating 15,000 people in 30 minutes, should another disaster befall the community.
Every time I come Amritapuri, a unique thing I found. What is that unique thing? That is give. Go on giving, and give and go on giving. And giving, this Amritapuri gets the pleasure, happiness. And the message what for people like us, the people who are sitting there, what you get, the giving is indeed happiness.
President Kalam was so impressed by Amma's capacity to effectively manage humanitarian funds that upon taking office as president, he donated the first 10 months of his salary to Embracing the World. The bridge is a symbol of unity and love. It can remove the feeling of I am from this side and I am from that side.
International NGOs, UN agencies have something to learn from the work of Amma and what she has been able to build. How much of the resources mobilized to support those in need go to those who are providing support, the personnel, whether UN agencies or NGOs? The overheads tend to be quite high. How much of the money which is mobilized actually goes and benefits directly those in need? This is remarkable, very striking for me, how she managed to get that formula right.
In the aftermath of the tsunami, the fishing patterns were disrupted and the fishing boats were coming back empty. Embracing the World's Empowering Women program was initiated as part of Amma's effort to help the survivors find alternative means of income, so they were not so dependent on the sea. Soon, the program expanded to benefit other women as well. Since then, we have provided more than 100,000 economically vulnerable women throughout India with vocational training, startup capital, and marketing assistance, as well as access to microcredit loans from government-regulated banks and affordable insurance plans. The women use these assets to form self-help groups, share micro-savings accounts, and start their own home-based businesses. For most of the women, it is the first job they have ever had. This turned out to be a smart investment. Research has shown that empowering women with equal economic opportunity is one of the most effective means to reduce poverty throughout entire communities.
Amma has dedicated herself in making impact in people's lives. She has been doing it in a way of being in touch with people, trying to see how to address their pain, how to make them overcome their troubles. And alongside, she has very concrete programs. If you see one side of Amma, you have not seen it all, because her concrete part is very solid, like all the microcredit activities that she has undertaken, all the housing activities she has undertaken. She has done more work than many of the governments ever did to their people.
In recent years, suicide has been spreading like an epidemic among farmers in India, who suffer from debt and crop failure. Often, seeing no hope for themselves or their future generations, whole families commit suicide together. In 2007, Shri Vilas Rao Deshmukh, then Chief Minister of Maharashtra, the state worst hit by the suicide epidemic, reached out to Amma for a solution. Amma responded with a project to provide scholarships for children in the affected communities. Through providing scholarships to children of farmers living below the poverty line, Embracing the World aims to lay a stronger economic foundation upon which these families can base their lives. The scholarships give the children new options to break out of the cycle of poverty and give hope to the whole family, thereby working to prevent suicide. Embracing the World is currently providing scholarships for more than 41,000 children. The goal is to reach 100,000 children throughout India. In 2009, the scholarship recipients were brought to Amritapuri Ashram for a comprehensive self-empowerment seminar where they received their scholarship checks directly from Amma.
The Amrita Speech and Hearing Improvement School is one of the few schools in Kerala that scientifically teaches hearing-impaired children to speak. The students work hard to overcome the limitations created by their speech and hearing disabilities. The school's curriculum is structured to enable the children to interact with others confidently and lead a full and productive life. More than 120 children attend the school. The children have a 100% pass rate in the secondary school leaving certificate exam and do very well in obtaining employment. The Amrita Institute for Differently Abled is dedicated to providing education for differently abled children, including those with Down syndrome, epilepsy, autism, and intellectual developmental disability. Proper developmental therapy, incorporating daily skills, early social integration, and schooling are provided. The programs provide these children with basic life skills and fundamental concepts that will help them function as independently as possible on a day-to-day basis. The Institute's teachers have created many different outlets for creative expression for the children. They have often discovered that while the children may not excel academically, they possess hidden talents. Properly cultivated, these talents can be nurtured into skills they will be able to use to make a living in their adult life. Amrita University has emerged as one of the fastest growing institutions of higher learning in India. The university offers more than 150 undergraduate, postgraduate and doctoral programs in engineering, business, medicine, biotechnology, social work, nanosciences and more. With a student population of more than 17,000, the university has been accredited by the National Assessment and Accreditation Council with an A grade. Professors are encouraged to come out of the lab to deploy their research and make a difference in the lives of those less fortunate. Researchers are breaking new ground in a broad range of highly specialized fields.
But it's not just another university, very high quality, world-class university, and focusing on technology, focusing on research. It's out of the way completely. And dealing with very concrete issues, not some academic frontier searching research. It's not like that, which has immediate application.
The university is working in partnership with more than 30 leading universities worldwide, including Stanford, MIT, and the University of Tokyo.
With the support of government funding, Embracing the World runs literacy and vocational training programs, serving the poorest tribal communities in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Historically, the tribal population has been exploited by merchants because they are illiterate and haven't learnt basic mathematics. By providing adult education, our program aims to help the tribal population achieve fair trade opportunities. More than 100 courses in various occupations are offered, with a special focus on traditional art forms which had been in danger of being forgotten by the younger generation. Graduates receive assistance in learning how to market and distribute their products through suitable outlets. Program participants learn how to read and write, and also how to calculate, so they know how much their product costs and that they are being fairly compensated for their efforts. From Amma's program, I learned the alphabet and how to do calculations. I calculate all the accounts for my weaving. I learned tailoring also. I can stitch small clothes. It is very good for us. Mostly I study the alphabet. Before I learnt the alphabet, I couldn't travel long distances. Now I'm able to travel because I can read bus signs. Before, I was afraid to go across the river. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to come back because I couldn't read. We also encourage participants to pay it forward by going on to volunteer in their own communities. Tailoring program graduates always donate their first school uniform to a child who cannot afford one. Participants also go on to teach neighbours, friends, and family how to read and write. We have also established a number of after-school centres to complement the regular schooling of the tribal children. These children's illiterate parents are unable to help them study at home, and dropout rates are high. At our after-school centres, they are given supplementary tutoring to ensure that they get the support they need to stay in school. We also provide the students with notebooks, pens, and other necessary school supplies. In 2008, Embracing the World's project won the UNESCO National Award for being the most effective administrator of adult education funds in India.
In 2007, Amma was featured along with Pope Benedict and the Dalai Lama in God's Name, a feature-length CBS documentary about the world's 12 most influential spiritual leaders.
I listen to them, and at times I become them. Their pain becomes my pain. I laugh when they laugh.
Following the immense success of the French film Darshan, on October 7, 2007, Amma was invited to Cinema Verite Film Festival in Paris to receive an award for her extraordinary work towards establishing world peace and harmony. World-renowned Hollywood film actress Sharon Stone presented the award to Amma. When the Koshi River overflowed its banks in 2008, half the state of Bihar was left underwater, causing 1 million people to be rendered homeless and in desperate need of immediate aid. Ames Hospital dispatched teams of specialists and paramedics who treated more than 500 patients daily. The medical team remained in Bihar for more than 2 months, treating 50,000 people through 100 medical camps. With a dual focus on rapid response and extensive long-term rehabilitation, Embracing the World has developed a reputation for being first on the scene and the last to leave, long after the media spotlight has faded away. Amma's empathy and concern for the disaster survivors is so complete that she responds to every aspect of their situation, not only fulfilling their material and emotional needs, but also keeping an eye on their future. Our provision of long-term support for disaster survivors has carried thousands through the darkest periods of their lives into the light of a hopeful future. 1,500 flood survivors were housed in 7 temporary shelters. Thousands of tents, blankets, and tarpaulins were distributed, along with cooking stoves and vessels, food, clothing, and school supplies. Altogether, $465,000 was spent on providing aid for the survivors. Our volunteers have provided immediate aid and long-term rehabilitation for survivors of the Gujarat earthquake in 2001, the Kashmir earthquake in 2005, the Mumbai floods in 2005, and Cyclone Aila in West Bengal in 2009. In the United States, after Hurricane Katrina, Embracing the World donated $1 million to the Bush-Clinton-Katrina Fund in aid to help the survivors. In 2010, we responded to the earthquake in Haiti by sending several shipments of emergency relief supplies and providing food and scholarships for children affected by the disaster. With the help of principals at 3 different schools, our volunteers identified 30 children who, having lost parents or other relatives, had been unable to return to school after the disaster. Their families could no longer afford to pay for their school-related expenses. Embracing the World is now providing for the children's well-being, including educational and living expenses. With the support of these funds, all 30 children were able to return to school.
One in 6 people alive today lacks adequate shelter. As a result of poor shelter, polluted water, and inadequate sanitation, 50,000 people, mostly women and children, die each day. Living in thatched huts that leak during the rainy season, poor village women often spend entire nights mopping rainwater out of their living areas. Shelter isn't their only problem. They can't afford even a single square meal per day. With no jobs in many rural areas, they don't have enough money to pay for transportation to a medical clinic when they get sick. Paying for school supplies to keep their children in school is out of the question. In 1997, Amma responded by initiating a house building project with a goal of building 100,000 homes throughout India. To date, more than 45,000 homes have been built in over 75 locations. The homes are given free to needy people who had previously been living in slums, thatched huts, or without any shelter whatsoever. More than constructing houses, Embracing the World works to build entire communities, complete with town halls, roads, electricity, wells, sewage systems, and clean drinking water. In 2009, the Indian states of Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka were ravaged by unprecedented floods. The flooding destroyed millions of acres of crops, displacing 2.5 million people. In response, Embracing the World announced a $10.7 million relief package for the flood survivors. As part of this package, 1,000 new homes were pledged for those who had lost their homes in the disaster. In 2012, volunteers from the Japanese student organization IVUSA also traveled to the site to help with the reconstruction. Some of the students had lived through the earthquake and tsunami in Japan and had been touched by the volunteer efforts of Embracing the World there. They saw this trip as their opportunity to give something back. By 2012, all 1,000 houses had been completed and handed over to the refugees. 3 community centres were also constructed in the area.
On Amma's third visit to Kenya in 2011, she was welcomed by the Vice President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka. Amma was there to officially inaugurate Amrita Watoto Boma, a care home for more than 50 children. Spread across 11 acres on the banks of the Athi River, Amrita Watoto Boma provides shelter, food, education, and healthcare in a loving environment, managed and run by Embracing the World volunteers. Facilities include dormitories, classrooms, a playground, sports facilities, and a medical clinic. The children come from across Kenya, identified with the help of the Kenyan government's children's officers, as well as social workers, village chiefs from poor slums, and references from local church pastors. In addition to the children's home, 2 other projects were inaugurated. The Amrita Vocational Training Centre, equipped with 35 computers, was built to serve the population of the nearby slum settlement, Jam City. In the centre's first course, 50 young adults who had been forced to leave school at a young age received training in basic computing. Beyond the training itself, course participants say the centre has become like a second home for them. To get drinking water, residents in the local area are forced to walk long distances and often pay to get water that is safe to drink. Until now, most people drank and cooked with water from the nearby river. 80% of disease in the community is caused by the consumption of unsafe water. To solve this issue, the Amrita Drinking Water Distribution Project was implemented to provide clean drinking water on a daily basis to all residents of the Jam City slum, as well as members of the Maasai tribal community.
Throughout her life, Amma has been expressing deep concern for the environment. She has publicly called on all of her admirers and devotees to take concrete steps toward the restoration of nature's delicate balance, including conservation of resources, reforestation efforts, and lifestyle changes. By encouraging sustainable living principles in all Amrita institutions, Amma and her volunteers are sowing the seeds of a better future. Through Green Friends, our international environmental wing, our volunteers promote local participation in conservation efforts worldwide. Several of our projects and events have been formally recognized by UNESCO as part of the UN Decade on Education for Sustainable Development. Green Friends is also a member organization of the UN Billion Tree Campaign. Our volunteers have planted more than 1 million trees worldwide. The Amala Bharatam campaign is a program aimed at improving public health and at restoring India's physical beauty. Through this campaign, Amma is calling on all citizens of India to embrace practical new initiatives to clean India's public spaces, promote health through hygiene, sort garbage, recycle, and properly dispose of waste. The campaign is also working to make people more aware of the need to avoid littering, spitting, and urinating in public, and to maintain environmental cleanliness. This awareness campaign is ongoing in every language and every state in India, and has already reached millions of people nationwide. Embracing the World is also distributing handkerchiefs to more than 1 million school children and educating them to use them instead of spitting on the ground. In New Delhi, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate and chairman of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Dr. Rajendra Pachauri, personally participated in this campaign.
Amma is truly such an enormous fountain of energy and love and compassion. I think if all of us were to get even a fraction of it within our own beings, there would be only joy in the whole world. Whatever little I can do with her inspiration, I will strive my best to accomplish it.
Throughout her life, Amma has always led by example. During her visit to Kolkata in 2013, after giving darshan for 12 hours, Amma left the stage and walked straight out onto the busy city street on which her ashram is situated, in order to personally inaugurate the Amala Bharatam campaign in Kolkata. Amma spent 3 hours raking, shoveling and bagging garbage, along with more than 800 volunteers. When they were finished, a 3-kilometer stretch of the road was spotless.
The State University of New York bestowed the doctorate upon Amma in recognition of her tireless efforts on behalf of global peace, for her commitment to education, and for the far-reaching impact of her charitable organizations in relieving poverty and human suffering in India and around the world.
The University at Buffalo is privileged to confer upon her the State University of New York Honorary Doctorate in Humane Letters.
In 2012, Amma was invited to deliver an address as one of the speakers at the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations. The event, titled Harmony Through Diversity and Dialogue, was jointly organized by the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations and UN Association of China. More than 150 delegates from throughout Asia and the South Pacific, representing governments, academia, corporations, NGOs, and cultural organizations took part in the two-day event. Amma was the only spiritual leader invited to the conference. She spoke on the subject, coexistence and engagement between cultures.
When we engage others with respect, understanding and acceptance, then we will be able to communicate at the level of the heart.
Supporting her points with practical examples and suggestions based on decades of humanitarian work in culturally diverse regions, Amma invited everyone to contribute to the global conversation on coexistence by setting an example of respect and tolerance.
The 2011 Tohoku earthquake was the fifth most powerful earthquake in recorded history and triggered a devastating tsunami with 40-meter waves. Nearly 16,000 people lost their lives, and almost 130,000 buildings were completely destroyed. Within 3 days of the disaster, Embracing the World sent its first group of volunteers to the affected areas to assess the situation on the ground and to distribute food and water for the refugees. After working near the disaster's epicenter, our relief teams soon focused their efforts on Rikuzen Takata, a remote coastal town of 23,000 people in dire need of support. Located more than 150 kilometers from the nearest major city, Rikuzen Takata was hit hard by the earthquake and tsunami, but had not been getting the help it needed. Later that same year, during Amma's visit to Japan, she announced a $1 million donation to help pay for the education of children who had been orphaned by the disaster in the prefecture of Miyagi. Amma then made an unscheduled stop in one of the tsunami-affected areas of northern Japan. Amma visited one of the relief centers for refugees, where she embraced and consoled each resident, offering them her shoulder to cry on. Knowing that the residents had lost everything, Amma presented household items for their material support and to help improve their life at the center. Amma traveled through the worst-hit areas of Shichigahama coastal region to get a clearer understanding of the magnitude of the destruction. Upon reaching the beach area, Amma led her tour group to the water's edge to pay their respects to those who had lost their lives. The offered flowers were carried out to sea, along with everyone's prayer for peace and harmony.
In 2012, there were 2 tragic accidents in South India. A fire at a fireworks factory in Shivakashi killed 38 factory workers, and many more were injured. In Kannur, an overturned LPG tanker exploded and claimed 15 lives, while injuring 35 more and destroying 45 homes. Our volunteers visited the scenes and consoled survivors. Embracing the World gave aid packages of $1,800 to bereaved families and $900 in aid to those with an injured family member.